The following podcast is a W2M Network partnership production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Welcome to This Week in the AFL alongside Erik Watkins and Joran Palacio of AFL Fan Zone. I'm Stephen Err. Before we get to our CAFL talk tonight, let's talk AFL because there's a lot going on and you guys need to know about it because it impacts the league pretty much the whole way. So it all started yesterday with Bernard Morris, quarterback of the Orlando Predators, announcing, I'm going to retire now. I'm out. We talked to him. He didn't give us a reason why. He just said, it's time to move on. And he said that what he told me was, the league is not what it used to be. That got me thinking, what is he talking about? And then about 5 minutes later, the Orlando Predators announced they are suspending operations for 2017. I believe it was today, the Sharks announced they were going to a rival league, which is what they didn't announce. Eric, was that today or yesterday?
That was yesterday.
It was yesterday. Okay, so yesterday the Predators said they were done. The Sharks are moving on. Now we're hearing today that the Steel, the Kiss, and the Rattlers are all going to the IFL. And the Sharks are potentially also going to the IFL, which is they warned us about yesterday in their statement. Other teams are going with us to this other rival league. So let's get some reactions from the two of you about what's going on in the AFL right now.
Well, I think the biggest thing is it's just a shame. It's just a shame because this is a league that obviously us three and everybody who follows AFL Fan Zone and ITA, we all love this league and we all pay our money to go watch, to go to the games. And it stinks. We were talking before the show started, this is the Titanic. This is all these other teams right now. And it started off with Orlando yesterday, I think yesterday morning or afternoon, depending on which part of the country you live in, by announcing they were going to be folding and suspending team operations. After that, it was just one after one after one after one. As of the recording of this podcast, still no official word yet from the Arena Football League. This is a day kind of like when this happened in 2008, when the league kind of said, "Okay, we're gonna stop this for a little bit, and we're going to take a break," and they took a season off. This is something that I think possibly there were some people saying that, hey, this might happen, watch out. And especially us, we didn't want to believe it, but now it's happening in front of us right now, and it's just it's really hard to watch for me personally.
And for me, and I kind of mentioned history repeating itself because I was looking at the league back in 06, 07, and I heard some rumblings going on, some things that weren't quite right to make it not look sustainable. Then the 08 season happened, Philadelphia Soul claiming their first Arena Bowl title. Then a couple months later, the league announced canceling the 09 season and then revealing everything that was going on administratively. And then finally that July, they declare bankruptcy. The rest is history. But I think for this is more of a blind side because we're getting all this news. Everybody's hyped up. Oh, we're going to have these expansion teams. We're talking to teams in Mexico, maybe Canada, all these other different cities, and everything is going just fine. And then this happens. I think we would have been better prepared had we at least known something wasn't right because we could sense that over the past 2-3 seasons. But having all of this collapse just in the span of a day or two, it's very sad, and I'm along with a few other people of wondering, I hope the sport as a whole hasn't run its course, but with these developments, what can you really say?
It's certainly looking like the sport has run its course. I mean, we're down to 4 teams. We have the Cleveland Gladiators still around, the Portland Steel, the Tampa Bay Storm, the Philadelphia Soul just won Arena Bowl 29, and the new Washington Valor. Now, me and Eric went on a podcast last night with our writer Chase Risman, and we talked about, is this worse than 2008 or is this better than 2008? In 2008, the league just canceled. Like, okay, we have no money, we're done. That's it. Here in 2016, 4 teams gone in 2 days. So I believe this is much worse than it was back in 2008.
I think without a question. Without a question, this is more dire and worse than the situation in 2008 was. I mean, even going to what Jacksonville said, Jacksonville seemed like they were kind of sticking it to the league when they came out with their official statement saying we're moving to a quote-unquote rival league, the semantics in that saying that we're going to go to the Arena Football League's competition, and they kind of gave a little bit of foreshadowing saying we're not the only ones. There's going to be a lot more coming with us. It's not just that the league is shutting its doors and saying, all right, we're done. It's these teams, these famous teams like the Rattlers and the Jacksonville Sharks, who both made playoff runs this year, Arizona getting to the Arena Bowl. When you have teams like that just closing up shop and heading to the rival league, quote unquote, I think there's a lot more problems here than there were just a few years ago.
I mean, absolutely, because even leading up to what happened in 2008, there was a measure of stability, long-time stability, big TV contracts, so you could understand how the money was flowing, where the money would be going in, and why things not even spiraled out of control, but escalated. Then, with the infrastructure in place, you knew at some point it was going to come back. Eventually it did. But now, between now 2 commissioners who've done nothing to get the league on stable ground, now you have these teams either defecting, jumping ship, folding all together, and the overwhelming theme is we don't like where this is going, to where teams will either lose money or just close altogether. That overall is not a good look. And even if you have the bare bones with 4 teams, which for all intents and purposes is what we have now, how could you really see this sustaining and building back up just to where it was 10, 12 years ago? So this, I don't want to say catastrophic, but if things keep playing out, it's what it could turn out to be.
And Jordan mentioned it, that the league might right now be in a conference call. The other executives of the final 4 teams, as I've seen on Twitter, it's the executives of the final 4 teams, the Storm, the Valor, the Soul, and the Gladiators, that are on this conference call. And even if we go to our CFL talk and we get the news that the Arena Football League has issued their statement, we're going to let you know what that statement says and what the future is of the Arena Football League. So Eric told me that after he found out his Sharks, possibly Jordan's Rattlers, the Steel, the Kiss, they're all going to the IFL. I agree with Eric that this is just a terrible move for these teams, because what are they getting out of it?
Kind of like Eric said before we started recording, in some cases it makes sense, in some it doesn't. And I'll kind of let Eric talk on this a little bit more as well. But in terms of the Rattlers, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily that bad of a move, especially for their standpoint, because for the Rattlers, over the past couple seasons, attendance-wise at Talking Stick Resort Arena here in Phoenix, they're pulling pretty good numbers. Their situation wasn't as drastic financially as maybe Jacksonville's was, when Jacksonville was struggling to bring in attendance and these other things. You know, you had a lot of moving pieces in Jacksonville when it came to the front office and the executive team. While in Arizona, things have been pretty stable for the most part, and the team constantly was putting out a good product. So for the quote-unquote casual fan, I don't know if it makes that much of difference. As long as the team keeps winning, which, depending on how their team possibly looks in the IFL and who they would be playing against, you know, teams like in Salt Lake, who is rumored to come in this year into the IFL, teams like that, I don't really see where there would be that much of a layoff. But in Jacksonville's case, it might be a little bit different.
Right. And looking at some of the teams like Billings, Montana, they've had teams in Omaha, They have Iowa, Spokane. You're looking at teams, if Arizona is included, throughout the mountains and into the desert Southwest, the Pacific Northwest, but you're not getting any farther east than the Iowa area. And the reason why they had the teams located where they were is so it would be much easier travel by bus instead of having to book flights. Now, with Salt Lake City, it's a bit more of a stretch. Obviously, with Arizona and Spokane, while the flights would be cheaper, you're still having to fly. With Jacksonville, you're talking about having to cross at least one time zone every road game, and that adds up. Even in the AFL, the only teams that they could have bus rides to, Orlando, Tampa, possibly New Orleans, and everywhere else they were flying. Now, you have no options whatsoever. And these kinds of flights, they add up.
Yeah, they add up. And Eric said before the show, if the Sharks are looking like they're going to fold here, they have to spend all this money on planes and other stuff just to play a team on the road. And the other teams, it's going to cost the other teams money too, going to Jacksonville, especially teams like Arizona, who just joined the IFL with the Sharks. And the Kiss and the Steel, all on the West Coast over there, they have to go Central Time or Eastern Time. That's going to cost them money too. So we might be seeing Jordan's Rattlers, plus the Kiss and the Steel also folding, even after 1 or 2 seasons in the IFL.
Personally, with Jacksonville, I wouldn't even give them 2 seasons. I think they would look at the costs, knowing that they can't just go out and assemble super teams like they were able to do to try to compete for home playoff games like they did the last few years in the AFL. And once these costs adding up, and if you make the playoffs, having to travel yet again, I think ownership, especially with Bushi involved, that's going to cause some big problems. And I think, you know what? We're going to be just done. They'll close up shop. And all of this, there's one big contingent. The IFL has to agree to take these teams. I can see for the IFL's benefit accepting Arizona and getting towards a 10th franchise if Salt Lake City gets in, but I don't see even in the IFL's benefit for accepting a team out of nowhere like Jacksonville. So there's a lot that could be up in the air, and I think the clock is ticking.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Jacksonville, I think the clock is most definitely ticking. Switching it to Arizona's situation, I don't think they're in that much of danger of folding. Maybe not necessarily within the next couple of years, because like Eric said, I think there's definite interest in the Rattlers. You get your 10th team, and like I said before, the Rattlers financially, as far as I'm aware, has been pretty stable with ownership and things like that, being able to pull pretty decent attendance numbers. So I think the Rattlers could make it a couple years. I don't know. We'll have to see where the league goes from a whole, because who's to say that a couple years from now the Rattlers are tired of playing in the IFL, and then now what do you have left if you're Arizona? So I think it kind of depends on maybe necessarily the league as well as the team's feeling on the league before they decide to make any more decisions after that. I don't know. I'd expect it, at least for me, it would be a little bit of an experimental first couple years for the Rattlers playing in the IFL, especially if they're done playing in the Arena Football League and they're done testing out those waters.
So we have 4 teams left: Tampa, Philly, Cleveland, Washington. I don't know about you guys. If we have a 4-team league next year for the 30th season, it's gonna be a nasty looking thing. But I think it might be a little bit fun.
I mean, for those of you who can dig up on YouTube some of the early days of the AFL from the late 80s where you only had 4 or 5 teams, you'll expect to see that. It would be a lot easier to cover for podcasts and sites and whatnot, but while it would be fun, I don't know if it would be 100% practical, because even if you're looking at a realistic schedule, you're looking at 12 games, then just flat out a top 2 going straight to the Arena Bowl. And while fans would still appreciate it because it's something, I don't know how much they would appreciate it, and I don't know how much front offices or coaches or even players will be wanting to go through all of that, seeing the same faces even for that little bit of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be definite interest in seeing 4 teams, but as Eric was saying, I don't know how long that luster can kind of last. I mean, there's talks about a disbursement draft going on right now, when that's going to be scheduled, so that kind of plays into this a little bit to see how teams improve. You have Washington coming in, who just held tryouts either last week or a couple weeks ago. So the teams right now, everything right now, it seems like there's a lot of question marks regarding this league, and there's a lot of things in the air that the league hasn't said anything about right now. We've only had 2 official statements in all of this mess, and that's been that Orlando is folding, that Jacksonville is moving to a quote-unquote rival league. So that being said, I don't know. We'll see if the Arena Football League, I don't know if they'd be able to keep some of their TV deals, because if you think about it, the TV deals, a lot of the time they were the same kind of teams, the same kind of games, the marquee matchups. So maybe people across the nation, channel surfing, only got to see a lot of the same teams, your Arizonas, your Orlandos, and things of that nature. So maybe if the teams are better and the game quality can improve, and this is kind of what my friend AFL Coffee was saying last night, maybe the league has a chance in that respect, but I don't know how long they can last with only 4 teams.
I agree with Jordan. You make a great point right there. TV deals, what's going to happen? Obviously, if this league goes with 4 teams during the 30th season, they're not going to be on TV. They'll be on local TV, maybe possibly locally TV, if at all. This is just a terrible situation right now. So to wrap this up here, let's just go into some predictions. There's a difference between assumptions and predictions, by the way. Predictions here. I think with 4 teams, the league may just cancel the 2017 season, and if they can't get it together during the summer of 2017, the Arena Football League will die.
Oh man, that cuts right to the bone, especially for me, who's been following this league for a good 6 or 7 years now, and has kind of given me my start in my journalism career. I mean, I don't want to see it happen, but not wanting to is different than the reality of the situation. I think it would make sense. I don't know. The league is still trying to get their ducks in a row when it comes to the situation, and it's been a couple of days now. As we said, there's been talks of, different meetings with league executives and things of that nature. And I don't know. I think it would probably be smart to cancel the 2017 season, seeing that there is only 4 teams, and while the opportunity still might be there, I don't know if it's necessarily the smartest thing to do right now. And then just try and come together and figure out what the plan is. Because right now, I think every single plan they just had got thrown out the window. I don't want to say the league is dead yet, but it's definitely getting closer to looking like that. I think the first step in trying to save this league is canceling this upcoming season and then trying to figure out what's the best course of action to go from there.
Personally, I agree with both of you. I think that 2017 realistically doesn't need to happen. And as someone, Joran, you've been following this league for a few years. I've been following the league since 2001. So I've seen the best times, ESPN contracts, seeing the weekly games on NBC, playoff, NFL style. It was great. And then seeing the steady decline leading to going dark in 2009, I thought if just the right group of people could come in, bring it back, then the league would be fine. Well, You had people that brought it back, but it didn't work. I think between the dissension in the era of Jerry Kurz and now all of the dissension among owners and now fans not trusting Scott Butera, I think the league has unfortunately come to a point where it's a little too toxic. Yes, there were cities in talks, and supposedly the Spurs were just a hair's width away from signing on to be part of an ownership group for a team in San Antonio. I think that's completely gone now. Maybe Ted Leonsis can get a consortium together to just buy the league and restructure it. But even then, you're talking nothing in 17, maybe nothing even in 18 either, as this is really going to have to take time to sort out. So, personally, I think if the league folds and declares bankruptcy or whatever again, it's done. I think there's nothing that you can really rebuild from. As much as I would love to see it rebuilt, there's no way that I can see a third chance coming out of this.
Funny we're talking about the Sharks and how they folded. They just tweeted out that they're still holding auditions for 2017 Dance Tag Team, whatever they're called.
The Attack Dance Team, and it's really, I mean, really. Oh,
Big.
Bushi at it again. That's all I'm saying.
There's a lot more we could say, but we just don't have the time for it. We hope that the Arena Football League can get it together and make everything better again, like it once was. But when we know what the statement is from the Arena Football League, if we're still on here, we will let you know. If not, inside_arena at This Week in AFL, at AFL Fan Zone, we'll have you covered. All right. It's time to get to the Chinese Arena Football League, which is not in trouble right now. That is on the other side. You are listening to This Week in AFL, CAFL edition.
Hi, I'm Donovan James, and welcome to the Don James High School Football Report, everybody, where we discuss and debate the hottest prep and college football recruiting topics in the country every week. Only here on NGSC Sports, 9:30 Eastern. For more, follow me on Twitter at Don James Sports.
It's game time, boys, and we know football. Football the Max is the podcast for you if you want in-depth analysis over the NFL and college football. We preview all the action coming your way over the weekend. And we break down all the big action after it's happened. Plus, we tackle all the big news topics and discuss everything when it comes to the gridiron. So come check out Football to the Max every Tuesday morning and Friday morning on the W2M network. It's game time.
Would Flexio be a better option at your flex position?
Do you need a sham wow to clean up the mess you make after your quarterback throws another interception?
Then we have the solution for you.
I'm Randy Isbell.
And I'm Mike Mitchell, and we're here to clean up your fantasy mess with more power than OxyClean.
Check out the Fantasy Football to the Max podcast every Monday and Thursday at W2Mnet.com.
Are you an Arena Football fan looking for the latest news involving your team? Inside the Arena has you covered. Check us out for the latest news around both the Arena Football League and the Chinese Arena Football League. Read all of our stellar articles at InsideTheArena.org. Also, follow us on Twitter at Inside_Arena and like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/InsideTheArena.
Hello to all you Arena League football fans out there. I want to personally welcome you to join us, AFL Fan Zone, every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for a weekly recap of all things AFL. You got stuff to do on the weekends, which means you probably don't have time to sit down and watch every single game every week. That's where AFL Fan Zone comes in. Not only do we break down the week, but we provide you with everything you need to stay up to date with the AFL, including Players of the Week, Power Rankings, and the weekly standings. Best part is, the recap is fully interactive between the viewers and the host. Just search AFL Fan Zone on YouTube and you can find all of our archived videos, including game previews, recaps, and weekly updates. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and at our website at www.aflfanzone.com. AFL Fan Zone, your internet home for the best AFL fans.
All right, welcome back to This Week in the AFL. Stephen Erik Watkins, Joran Palacio of AFL Fan Zone. So we'll get started here with the CAFL Super Series II recap. It was pretty much what we expected here in Super Series II. We'll start with the Shanghai Skywalkers going up against the Guangzhou Power. Both teams 0-1 coming into this game. Quarterback Shane Austin starting for Shanghai, even though Jordan and I talked about it last week. They should think about starting their Chinese quarterback, Zi Kun. They didn't, and they should have. Shane Austin struggled once again against the Power. He threw 2 interceptions in the end zone, both to Cameron McGlenn, who formerly, I believe, was with the Storm, last I checked. But he did throw 3 first-half touchdowns, so that's an improvement from last week's game against Beijing. Dwayne Hollis for the Skywalkers recorded 2 interceptions, so that we know watching Arena Football League, Dwayne Hollis is a great guy. So watching him do this just shows us that more. Shanghai went out to win the game. I do not remember the final score, but from what you guys know, let's get your takeaways from this game.
Shanghai won that game 45-32, so they won by a couple of possessions. You said it, and we said it last week on the show. We were a little bit, what's the word here? What's a good euphemism? A little bit questioning of Shane Austin's ability coming into week number 2. I remember, or Super Series 2, excuse me, Stephen, you were calling for, and you just called for it again, the Chinese quarterback to come in and replace him. And this week, Austin, like you said, held in check for the first half, threw 2 interceptions. And, man, you can't do that. Luckily, his defense came in and was able to help him out and bail him out, I should say. Although in the second half of this game, I think something finally clicked for Shanghai. They only gave up a couple of touchdowns in the entire second half. I believe they shut out Guangzhou in one of those quarters, if I'm not mistaken. In this game, you had Mike Washington going off for 133 yards, 2 touchdowns. SK, Sean Kalinamoku, scored 3 touchdowns. And, Shane Austin, besides those 2 picks, had a 7-touchdown game. So I think finally something for Shanghai finally clicked. We saw them play off in their first game against Beijing. And in this first half against the Power, they seemed to be playing that same type of slow. They couldn't really get it going until that second half came around. And then all of a sudden something just clicked. So I think right now Shanghai is looking as good as they might ever look in this season. And I think it only might get better for them going forward.
Well, personally with Shanghai, after what I've seen of Shane Austin, I know that he's always had moments. Yes, he has times where he holds the ball, terrible decision, but all of these things, yet when he's on, he's really on. And I guess maybe that clicking, they've tailored a different bit of offense. Maybe they've adjusted their play calls, but if they have this to where he can shake off 2 end zone interceptions and turn around the rest of the game, throw 7 touchdowns, watch out.
Yeah, I remember last week when we recapped Super Series 1, I told Jordan, the Skywalkers cannot be 0-2 going into Super Series 3. So it was good that they pulled out this double-digit win. And Jordan mentioned here that something clicked for Shanghai in the second half. His name is Dwayne Hollis. 2 interceptions. I think 1 went for a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. So that seemed to me to be the big-time player in the second half for Shanghai, to pull out the win. They are 1-1. They will face the Shenzhen Naja in Super Series 3. We'll get to that later in the show. But guys, can we still, even at 1-1, can we still call them the Super Skywalkers?
I think so. Because their one loss was an overtime 1-point loss in which they went for 2 to win the game against the Beijing Lions, a 2-0 team right now who just beat another very good team, which we'll get into later. And then they come out and they win by 13 against the Power. The Power, who are the best 0-2, even though it sounds like an oxymoron, they're the best 0-2 team as opposed to the Dragon Kings of Dalian. I think we said it last week, Stephen. We think they're still going to make the China Bowl. I think they're still going to be in the championship game, and I still think they're going to win the championship game. It's just a matter of getting things going. I think this win might propel them to finally come Super Series 3 looking like the Super Skywalkers team that we all think they can be.
Well, that's kind of the blessing and the curse of these really short, almost tournament-style seasons, because at 1-1, normally would say, well, absolutely, because you're turning it around at the right time, but with only 3 games to go, my bet is if they keep playing like this and eventually extend that to 2-1, of course, because if you got 2 wins in a row, 2 games left, how are you going to be stopped going into the China Bowl? So I think if this click really has happened like we've seen, Skywalkers, sky's the limit.
That's a good one. Skywalker, sky's the limit. It's like a slogan or something that somebody
nice.
should use.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
But as far as Guangzhou goes, I'm thinking the one problem is they play close in their 2 losses, but the problem there is quarterback J.J. Raderick. He's the one that turns the ball over most for his team. I think it might be time to move on to the next quarterback.
Well, in their 2 losses, they were very much in the game. In this game against Shanghai, they were in the game until that second half hit, and then all of a sudden, Raderick throws 2 picks, both to Dwayne Hollison, and now you're down a couple of scores, and now you have to get a stop on Shanghai, which is not an easy thing to do. And in their first game in the Super Series 1, they were either winning or tied or down by a couple points. The game escapes my memory right now. But it was, again, 2 interceptions against Qingdao, the Clipper, which cost them the game. So now you have 2 weeks in the row that the Power are in the game, and then a couple of turnovers. One of them was a fumble in Super Series 1, both of them interceptions here in Super Series 2, where you're in the game, and then all of a sudden a couple picks, a couple turnovers, and then it's over. And then there's nothing left for you to do. So I don't know. You need a full 4 quarters out of Raderick, and right now to this point, he hasn't given the Power a full game, a full 60 minutes just yet.
And this is kind of always been one of my questions about Raderick. When we were previewing, even before Super Series 1, and I was looking at this roster, and the way it's set up, okay, mobility, speed, so that you wouldn't necessarily have to rely on Raderick's arm. Yes, decision-making questionable, but you have something that, even in looking at the standard of play in the university championships, nobody's been really able to see and defend that. That isn't happening too much, and now you're trying to turn Raderick into a traditional quarterback. In the AFL, the LA Kiss tried that. It didn't work. Now the Power are trying it. It's not working. I don't know. Maybe the Power need to be the ones with the quarterback change, and I didn't think that I would be saying that right out of the gate. But as Joran said, he's not the kind of traditional guy that can give you 4 quarters. He needs extra dimensions, because if you're relying on his arm and his decision-making in that respect, that's when the turnovers start to happen.
Yeah, I think that they need to move on from J.J. Raderick. I don't know who the other quarterback is, but obviously he's not working out. He's costing the games here. So to wrap it up here, Shanghai 1-1. They beat the Guangzhou Power, 0-2 Guangzhou Power, 45-32. And Shanghai will face Shenzhen. We'll get to that later. Guangzhou will face... I messed up my notes. Ah, boy, okay. Anyway, we'll move on to the next game here. Beijing and Shenzhen. I expected this one to be a really close game. And it was. Defense stepped up. The Lions scored a touchdown. 23 seconds left, take the 40-41 lead. And then the defense stepped up, and they didn't allow Shenzhen to tie the game, and they won 40-41. So the Lions went to 2-0. But there's a problem here with the Lions. They keep giving up big leads. In their game against Shanghai, they have 40-26 lead in the 4th quarter. Gone. Like that. Against Shenzhen, another lead. Gone. Like that. They can't keep doing this.
No, and you took the words right out of my mouth. This is exactly what I was going to open up with. In this game against Shenzhen, they were winning 41-28 at the end of the third quarter. They had that big of a lead. They had a 13-point lead heading into the fourth, 2 possessions, and then you just get stopped a couple of times, and then all of a sudden you need a last-second touchdown to win you the game. Kind of like what we were saying with Roderick, these Beijing Lions have not played 60. I don't think they've played a full 60 minutes yet. They escaped with the win against Shanghai, which they were 2 yards away from losing if Sean Klinomoku can get that ball across the plane and into the end zone in that 2-point conversion. And against the Naja of Shenzhen, they needed an Erwin Snet-Yu touchdown to win them the game with something like, I think, 20 seconds left, if my math's not wrong on that one. I don't remember exactly. I know it was in the last minute of the game. I mean, these Lions need to just play. They have the talent. They had the talent. They were pulling a walloping on Shanghai, and they were pulling a walloping on Shenzhen. It's just they haven't closed out the games yet. And once they start doing that, if they can start doing that, watch out for the Lions. They're looking like a strong team if they can just learn to close out.
Well, you can have all of the talent you want, but do you really have the aggression? It's that old killer instinct. I mean, when you get to the fourth quarter, you have a big lead. You can't look to just simply grind out the clock, go through the motions, because as we've seen the past 2 weeks, these are when big leads get blown, and all of a sudden, your back is against the wall, pressure's on you. You could win the game, you may not. But the fact that if you have a 13-point lead going into the fourth quarter, you have to keep playing the same way. Be aggressive, keep going down the field, even if things don't work out on defense. If you can just learn to match the team score for score, hang on and win. I don't know if the Lions have that mentality yet. And unfortunately, it takes time to build that mentality, but they could do that going into Super Series 3. Who knows what could happen?
So the Lions won 40-41 over Shenzhen, but they cannot keep losing leads. Qingdao, and Dalian. We expected this coming in. 1-0 over Zone 1. This game was just one-sided as all hell.
Yeah, it was. I got the final 43-26, Qingdao. Steven and I said this up and down last week that this defense for the Clipper, this Qingdao defense, just unstoppable. And that's kind of a pun because the defense usually gets the stops. It was the best defense in the league going up against, without a doubt, the worst offense in the league. Going through something I like to call JHS, Joe Hill syndrome. Still, it looks like they haven't been able to figure out what they're doing yet on offense. They put something like 19 in the first game and then 26 in this one. Easily the lowest scoring offense in the league through 2 Super Series. It's just, I don't know what they can do to figure it out. They need to figure something out because right now Dalian's looking like the team headed for possibly 0-5 and straight for that number 6 spot heading into Shanghai Super Series and the weekend of the China Bowl. However, though, for Qingdao, this is the best defense in the league, I think without a question, holding teams to 35 and then 26. I think this is the team led by none other than Tanner Varner. You know, Varner proved me and Steven right last week. We gave him praise, so much praise throughout the podcast, and he definitely delivered with the rest of this Qingdao defense.
Absolutely. I mean, for Dalian, yes, you don't have one of the biggest impact receivers in the league available, but even then, you still have guys that you can throw to, be it the quarterback, your other receivers. You can make some plays instead of just going through all this and really putting up 26 points. And when you have a team in Qingdao, you have this level of confidence knowing that if your offense just, you can tell them, hey, get us to 40, we'll take care of the rest. You have any idea how little pressure that has and how much of a boost that will be to a team? I I would be scared if I were some of the other teams in this league. If I have a team that can afford to have that sort of mentality, they're the ones holding up the trophy at the end of the year.
Jordan took the words out of my mouth this time. That was good, by the way. JHS, you call it? Joe Hill syndrome?
Yep.
The Dalian Dragon Kings are really missing Joe Hills right now. Like, if they had him, they could be 1-1, 2-0, who knows? But they're just awful. By the way, I found I regrouped my notes. Guangzhou plays Dalian next week in Super Series 3, which we get to on the other side. You're listening to This Week in AFL, CAFL edition.
Hello to all you Arena League football fans out there. I want to personally welcome you to join us, AFL Fan Zone, every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for a weekly recap of all things AFL. You got stuff to do on the weekends, which means you probably don't have time to sit down and watch every single game every week. That's where AFL Fan Zone comes in. Not only do we break down the week, but we provide you with everything you need to stay up to date with the AFL, including Players of the Week, Power Rankings, and the weekly standings. Best part is, the recap is fully interactive between the viewers and the host. Just search AFL Fan Zone on YouTube and you can find all of our archived videos, including game previews, recaps, and weekly updates. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and at our website at www.aflfanzone.com. AFL Fan Zone, your internet home for the best AFL fans.
It's game time, boys, and we know football. Football to the Max is the podcast for you if you want in-depth analysis over the NFL and college football. We preview all the action coming your way over the weekend. And we break down all the big action after it's happened. Plus, we tackle all the big news topics and discuss everything when it comes to the gridiron. So come check out Football to the Max every Tuesday morning and Friday morning on the W2M network.
Hi, I'm Donovan James, and welcome to the Don James High School Football Report, everybody, where we discuss and debate the hottest prep and college football recruiting topics in the country every week. Only here on NGSC Sports, 9:30 Eastern. For more, follow me on Twitter at Don James Sports.
Would Flexio be a better option at your flex position?
Do you need a sham wow to clean up the mess you make after your quarterback throws another interception?
Then we have the solution for you.
I'm Randy Isbell.
And I'm Mike Mitchell, and we're here to clean up your fantasy mess with more power than OxyClean.
Check out the Fantasy Football to the Max podcast every Monday and Thursday at W2Mnet.com.
Are you an Arena football fan looking for the latest news involving your team? Inside the Arena has you covered. Check us out for the latest news around both the Arena Football League and the Chinese Arena Football League. Read all of our stellar articles at InsideTheArena.org. Also, follow us on Twitter at Inside_Arena and like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/InsideTheArena.
Welcome back to This Week in the AFL. Stephen Err, Erik Watkins, Joran Palacio of AFL Fan Zone. So we're going to go ahead and go right into Super Series 3 here. The first game of Super Series 3, which I believe is being held in Qingdao this week, the Naja take on the Skywalkers. So in this game, it's obvious here. We talked about this on during the break. Well, not during the break, before the break. Shane Austin cannot, and I repeat, Shane Austin cannot make mistakes against the Shenzhen defense.
No, I think for Shane Austin, this could be his statement game. If he comes out and played the way he did in that second half, in the game last week in Super Series 2, then he can kind of prove to us, especially, and to the rest of the people who are kind of raising questions about him, that he is there to stay. He is a legitimate quarterback, and he was worthy of such a high draft pick that the Skywalkers used on him. Real quick, I want to kind of open a question. I know I'm kind of stealing Eric's answer away from him, but I want to open up a question to you guys. Both teams are 1-1 coming into this game, and there's only 2 more quote-unquote regular season games left. Do you guys think the winner of this game might be the number 2 seed heading into the China Bowl?
Hold that thought, Jordan. We have breaking news. Adam Markowitz of Arena Fan is reporting the Arena Football League will not fold. They will go on 2017 with 4 teams.
Oh,
so this is going to be a fun ride.
Oh, this is going to be a quirky season.
Yeah, Cleveland, Philly, Tampa, and Washington. The 4 teams playing next year.
There is an article from arenafan.com, but of course my phone does not allow me to load it up right now, so we'll have more information over Inside the Arena over at AFL Fan Zone when we can get you to that. So Jordan, please go back to what was your question?
As I was saying, both teams at 1-1. I think these are 2 out of the top 3 teams in the league. Do you guys think that the winner of this game might just take home the number 2 seed in the China Bowl?
Wow. Number 2 seed? That's tough. That really is tough because you gotta remember this. Wait, if the winner of this game goes to 2-1,
right? You
also have to remember that the loser of the Qingdao Beijing game also is 2-1.
2-1, yeah.
So 2, 3, and we still have 2 games left in the regular season of the CAFL. It's going to be very close because Shanghai, Qingdao, and Beijing all have great teams. I mean, the 3-0 team pretty much is going to be the number 1 seed at the end of this if they keep it up. But if the winner of this game being the 2 seed, I would say no. I say they'd be the 3 seed.
To me, I would have to see kind of the rest of the schedule and also tiebreakers. My gut would be telling me no simply because teams at the top usually like to stay there, but I've seen crazier tie-breaking scenarios happen before, so I can't completely rule it out. It's out there.
Yeah, I believe if I'm not mistaken, Qingdao, after they play Beijing, has to play Shanghai and Shenzhen. I'm not sure of the order, but they have those 2 teams left to play on their schedule. So those 2 games in the next upcoming Super Series, I think definitely going to have some impact. Obviously, those 2 games decide whether Qingdao stays. And I think Qingdao, kind of switching the subject a little bit, and then we'll get back to this game. Qingdao, I think, has come out and surprised a lot of people with their fast start, sitting at 2-0 right now, having a chance to go 3-0, and as Steven said, looking very, very pretty. Now, switching it back to the Shanghai-Shenzhen game, I think the important thing to remember here is if not only is Shane Austin's play, but it's how Shenzhen comes out. Shenzhen was a team who was down by a lot against Beijing, come back to tie the game, and then lose within the last minute and can't score on their ensuing drive with something like 15 seconds left like that. I think if Shenzhen comes out and they punch Shanghai in the mouth and they get off to a fast start, I think Shanghai could be in trouble. I've been very, very impressed with what Shenzhen has been able to do in the first 2 weeks. They put a walloping on Dalian, as they should have, and then played Beijing very, very tough. I think if Shenzhen can get out to this fast start, then it's going to be a very, very good game. I don't want to say that Shenzhen is going to win. I don't want to necessarily take them as my pick, but it could create something like a toss-up between these 2 teams where if the Naja get out quick, get out of the gates fast, we could have a very, very good game on our hands, even better than the game it's shaping out to be on paper.
Well,
yeah. Go ahead, Eric.
No, I was just going to say, the Naja, while a fast start would benefit the most, I think if anything, if they just hold tough, because of their capacity to come back, Shane Austin, let's face it, he's playing for his job right now. He's bought himself another week. But if he makes those same mistakes and the Naja can capitalize on them, which they can, that could give Naja the win and that could give Austin the boot. But at the same time, if Austin keeps the confidence that he had from the rest of last week's game and can keep that forward to this week, then that gives him a boost and that gives the team a boost. So, this is going to be a tough pick.
Yeah, and go ahead, Eric.
No, I was just going to say, the Naja, while a fast start would benefit the most, I think if anything, if they just hold tough, because of their capacity to come back, Shane Austin, let's face it, he's playing for his job right now. He's bought himself another week. But if he makes those same mistakes and the Naja can capitalize on them, which they can, that could give Naja the win and that could give Austin the boot. But at the same time, if Austin keeps the confidence that he had from the rest of last week's game and can keep that forward to this week, then that gives him a boost and that gives the team a boost. So, this is going to be a tough pick.
Another thing you have to realize here, this Shenzhen defense, which has dominated their first 2 games, they're going up against not just one, but 2 well-playing quarterbacks. Luke Collis and Chris Diker. Both can throw the ball. Diker especially can run the ball. He's scored a few rushing touchdowns this CAFL season. And for Shanghai, key here, and we think the SK is a big target. Nobody has been a bigger target so far for Shanghai than Mike Washington of the then AFL's Arizona Rattlers. I've seen him play the CFL. Nobody covers him. This guy gets open, and he's all by himself. All by himself. He is a big key to the Shanghai team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I talked about Mike Washington last week being just as valuable as Sean Klinomoku, and I think the stats so far has backed it up. I think he scored something like 2 touchdowns in the game last week, scored a few in their first game against Beijing. If I'm pulling up my notes here, let's take a look. Yeah, 133 yards, 2 touchdowns in that game last week that they played. So Washington has definitely made himself look very, very good. And when you have Shane Austin back there slinging the ball, I think he needs as many targets as you can get him. So that being said, Mike Washington definitely could be the X factor in this game, if he's not already.
Personally, if you have that kind of receiving talent, it's sort of like a lesser grade Sharks. But thankfully, with a guy like Austin, he would definitely seem to manage how to get the ball to everybody better. But if Washington keeps developing and starts being the number 1, how can Shanghai react to that and make sure that their other receivers, when they're open, they can get the ball too? So this is going to be an interesting tandem to look at, not just against the Naja, but for the upcoming Super Series. But definitely it's giving Austin a bit of a break.
All right, so we gotta move on here. Guangzhou Dalian. It's a tale of 2 0-2 teams here. Guangzhou has played well, and Dalian has played like a dumpster fire. So I mean, both teams have their turnover issues, but Guangzhou knows how to keep it close. Dalian, they keep it close, but then the fourth quarter comes around and it's like, oh, here you go, you can have the game. I don't want it.
Yeah, I said it earlier in the podcast. The Power are definitely the better 0-2 team. They've played a little better talent so far in playing against the 2-0 Qingdao in their first game and then playing against the now 2-0 Beijing Lions in their second game. So, yeah, I think the Dalian offense is all but dead. There's been not a whole lot of scoring. I'm pretty sure I can say this about 98% confidently. This is the preview to the 5-6 game that's coming up in Shanghai in a few weeks, the weekend of the China Bowl. I don't think the Power will have too much trouble with Dalian in this one. I think this will be a pretty easy win for the Power, especially when hopefully Roderick can kind of limit the turnovers. As you said, both teams have their turnover troubles, but I think the Power's defense is not going to have too many problems with the Dragon Kings offense, and those extra possessions are going to turn into extra points, and I think Guangzhou will have their way with Dalian in this one.
Sometimes when you have a team like Guangzhou, as Jordan mentioned, they play tough, but it's a little bit of bad luck, running out of time, just running 1 or 2 plays short. You have, as I had mentioned, that confidence to know that you can play with anybody and you can beat just about anybody. And for the Dragon Kings, who can you turn to that can not just make one play, but have to make multiple plays? And I really don't think that there's the answer to that question. Radarink, now that he's developing a little bit of chemistry, he's getting more comfortable in the system, I think he can limit those turnovers, and that will help the Power tremendously. They get the monkey off their back, get their first win easily, then on to the next.
So it's not really a bold prediction because it's kind of true here with the short season we have for the CAFL. Whichever team loses this game, they can just kiss their chances at the China Bowl goodbye.
Yeah, without a question. Whoever drops this game goes to 0-3. And I don't think with teams like Qingdao, with teams like Beijing, Shenzhen, and Shanghai, an under 500 record at the best, 2-3 would be the best they can do, is going to make the China Bowl by any stretch of the imagination. So, like Steven said, in a sense, this is an elimination game from the big game in Shanghai in a few weeks.
I mean, when you lose and then the best that you can do is 2-3, arguably a 2-3 team won't make the China Bowl. Especially with the talent at the top of this league, that's not happening. And that's even if you lose and then you go on to winning the next 2 games. So at this point, whoever loses this, you're fighting to avoid the 6th spot and maybe make a push for 4th, maybe 3rd. But if you haven't won by now, then you're just looking to win just so you can say you won a game.
So whichever team goes down is out, pretty much. As for Qingdao and Beijing, there's not much complicated. There's much thing here online. Maybe a 1 seed, 3-0. That's pretty much it. But Qingdao's defense, obviously the best in the CAFL, going up against Beijing's complete team that has Erwin Swift, Sinet Wu. By the way, I want to correct myself. Shanghai does not have Luke Collins and Chris Diker. That's the Lions. The Lions have Chris Diker and Luke Collins. I don't know how he got them messed up, but anyway. And Colin Taylor, of course, another big player for the Lions. So that's going to be a really great matchup. Qingdao's defense, Beijing's offense.
Well, without a doubt, this is our game of the week. And it's fitting that Super Series 3 is in Qingdao, so the hometown fans will get a treat for sure. This is the second out of the three, Super Series where the best game has been saved for last. In Super Series 1, it was Shanghai versus Beijing, which was a fantastic game, I think, to this point, game of the season. And then here, 2-0 versus 2-0, as Steven said, the high-powered offense taking on the best defense in the league. It's going to be a great game. And it hurts to say that one of these teams is going to lose, or you have to almost pick one of these teams to lose because of how well both of these teams have been playing. Qingdao's, like as we've been saying last week, this week, and we'll probably say for the rest of the season, their defense has won them a couple of games. Going forward for Qingdao, a win here makes them look extremely, extremely good. Sitting at 3-0 with 2 games left definitely gets them into the China Bowl conversation, which I'm not really sure. I don't really think the Qingdao Clipboard were all into that conversation when the season started. So if they get a win here, a big win here, they're looking pretty heading in to the home stretch of the season. But it's going to be a good game no matter what. I think this is going to be a 4-quarter game. Let's see if Beijing can finally close out a game. They have not been able to do that in the first 2 games as we've hit the midway point here in the CAFL regular season. I think this is the ultimate test if they can finally close out a game and play all 4 quarters.
Absolutely right. It's not how you start. It's how you finish. The Lions need to learn how to finish. So we're going to go ahead here and we're going to do picks. So we'll start with Qingdao and nope, never mind. Wrong game. Shenzhen and Shanghai. Who do you guys got in that game?
Personally, I would have to go with Shanghai in this one. Something about how they're starting to come up. I love teams that can build momentum and seize momentum quickly, and typically that translates from one team to the next. I haven't seen it that much from the Naja, so Shanghai, this one may be a nail-biter, but I think Shanghai can definitely pull this one out.
Yeah, I said it last week when I picked Shanghai to win their game that I'm not sold on anybody else other than Shanghai just yet. Shenzhen played Beijing very, very tough, and it was a very good game, and they were making a stop away or forcing overtime away from possibly coming out on top in that one. However, that being said, I don't think Shenzhen has enough to stop this quote-unquote Super Skywalker's team, the Shanghai team. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to take Shanghai in this one over the Naja. It's going to be close, but it's going to be Shanghai's game to lose, I think.
I'm going with Shanghai too, not because of Shane Austin, but because of SK, Sean Koliumoku, and because of Mike Washington. So now we go over to Guangzhou and Dalian. What do you guys got?
Looking at this game, we've been saying that Dalian's offense has not looked good by any stretch of the imagination. I said it earlier, this should be a pretty one-sided game. I think the Power will take the Dragon Kings not necessarily for granted. They're not going to overlook Dalian, at least they shouldn't, because you have some danger in games like this. They should be coming out hungry, trying to get, as Eric said, the monkey off their back, trying to get their first win, I should say, of the season. It's going to be the Power beating Dalian in this one.
Absolutely. I mean, with the way that the game is set up, with the way the season is set up, if you're at the point to where you can't generate any offense and you're going up against a team that is hungry, I mean, the Power go up, especially if they get off to a fast start, 2-3 scores first quarter, early second quarter, then we're talking about a potential runaway because there is nothing from the Dragon Kings that can even come back. I definitely like the Power this one. They've been a little bit snake-bitten, but I think this is the point to where they say, okay, we can put together and win a game. That's what's going to happen.
I'm going with Guangzhou too. They play close games. Dalian does not. They could be a blowout, it could be close. Guangzhou is going to win the game, though, at the end of the day. Now we go to the battle of the undefeated. Qingdao, Beijing. Who you guys got winning this game, going to 3-0?
Now, coming in this game, it's no secret. I love this Qingdao defense. Defense is best in the league, led by Tanner Varner. That being said, we have the likes of Erwin Sinet Wu, Colin Taylor, the two quarterback system that they've been running with Luke Hollis and Chris Deeker. I don't see the Clippers defense being able to stop the Beijing offense. And even then, if they are, Beijing has a pretty good defense too, FYI. Breaking news here. Beijing is a little bit more complete than Qingdao is. And I think if Beijing, especially if they get a couple stops, Beijing will take this one. They might do their classic, we're going to let them back into the game with about a minute left to play. But I still think the Lions are going to take this one. They're going to move into good position at 3-0, looking forward to the China Bowl.
I don't want to say that this could be a China Bowl preview, so I'm officially not. But it would not surprise me if these two teams met again. And with Chris Deeker, who in my mind has always been underrated as a quarterback, he could easily go off, and this could be the game to where everybody's touting Qingdao's defense and saying they're the best, and normally a great defense can stop a good offense, but Deeker, he can throw 7, 8, maybe even 9 scores, and that eliminates the question altogether. I think for that, I can't pick the Clipper in this one. As much as I love their defense, as Jordan said, Beijing is a more complete team. If you have a complete team and an underrated quarterback, you're going to win games. Beijing's going to win this one.
Well, I'm going with Qingdao in this one, actually. Their defense is the best in the CAFL. Brian Randall is pretty good, as a matter of fact. And if Xavier Boyce, another Virginia Tech prodigy, can hold on to the ball into the end zone, Qingdao is going to go to 3-0. Beijing will fall to 2-1. But Beijing, they still have a great chance of making the China Bowl. But this says a lot about Qingdao if they win this game, going to 3-0. So Eric, last week Jordan and I, we picked our China Bowl champions. We both think it's Shanghai. So we'll ask you, since you're on with us this week, who do you have winning the China Bowl on November 6th?
as much as I wanted to look over the rosters and pick Shanghai early on, I think they're in too much of a fight now. And especially with, again, somewhat of a quarterback who can get hot, like a Chris Deaker, even in a two-quarterback system. Usually it is the more complete teams that win. I'll probably be eating crow after this, but I got to go ahead and pick Beijing. I mean, yes, I can make arguments for about 4 of the teams right now, but to me, the way Beijing is playing, and especially if they win this week, they'll be in cruise control.
So I just want to make it clear, you have Beijing winning the China Bowl?
Yes.
There you have it. We have 2 Shanghais at Beijing. Next week we're hopeful to have Dylan Goldman, Shanghai Skywalker's beat writer of Inside the Arena, coming on and tell us who he thinks will win the China Bowl. But until then, this week in the AFL Super Series 2 preview, Super Series 3 preview is concluded. I'm Stephen R. alongside Erik Watkins and Joran Palacio. And just to end the show here, 3 sources from Adam Markowitz from Arena Fan have told him there will be 4 teams playing in 2017. So the league lives. Bring it on.
One of those 4 teams, including the Washington Valor, which, if you want the league to continue to go and to continue to live, you have to be voting on it. I mean, I think even Adam said that himself. Especially in the eyes of teams maybe looking from the outside in, and even fans from the outside in, to see an expansion team do well in their first year would do wonders for the league, and especially in a 4-team system. Yeah, you need all your teams to do well, but especially if you can get the new team in Washington to do pretty well, that would be certainly in the league's best interest.
Well, the key here is going to be the dispersal draft, which I've heard that should be coming within the next couple of days. I've heard as early as tomorrow. And this is a league, if any, that if you can assemble a good team and a good staff, you can be successful and do wondrous things your first year. I think if the Valor, who not even necessarily behind the 8 ball, I think if anything, they would have the best chance just at starting from scratch. If they can go on, win more than the majority of their games, like say if it winds up being a 12-game season, say that they go 8-4 or 9-3 and put themselves in a position to be in the Arena Bowl, that can show no matter what, yes, we can build a team and you can build a winning team, and it doesn't have to take too long of a time. That, to me, will harken back to the old days, if anything else.
So, like I said, the league lives. Joran Palacio of AFL Fanzone, thanks for joining us. We'll have you on again next week. Erik Watkins, I'm Stephen R. Enjoy Super Series 3. We'll be back next week to recap it all and preview Super Series 4 right here on This Week in the AFL.
The following podcast is a W2M Network partnership production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.